Hi everyone, this is Billy. I'm the interim VP of membership and I use they them pronouns. Today we're going over our guide to funding your way to the annual OSEM conference. A little bit about myself: I've been volunteering with OSEM since 2018 and I was a chapter leader while at Georgia Tech from 2015 to 2019. I wanted to start with a flowchart that breaks down the main phases of the conference funding. This is sort of the flowchart or timeline that we followed while I was at Georgia Tech. We always started with a budget. We needed to know roughly how much flights would be, how much hotels, registration, and as a part of the budget, we would decide how many people we would try to take. I think the most our chapter took was 12, but I've heard of chapters taking like 30 people. And there's a few different ways to fundraise, so we'll touch those when we get there. The next step is actually writing up a proposal and figuring out who you're going to ask. Your proposal basically needs to outline what is the conference, why it's important for your attendees, and then also what are some benefits from the school. Like, will your chapter have like a corporate sponsor, or will people get internships or jobs that your school will use in their metrics for like student success. And then there's a flowback arrow to the budget. And this really relates to the ask. If sponsors are either able to give more or less, then you might be able to readjust your budget to bring more or less people. The next step is purchasing. That's its own step. Schools have vastly different rules in terms of purchasing. Some are reimbursement only. Some will let you do it on a school procurement card. My best advice is to work with your sponsors to figure out what they can pay for upfront. We would be able to have some of our sponsor departments go ahead and buy our registrations or flights. That way we didn't have to put the burden on students. But I think for things like SGA funding, student government funding that is, it was reimbursement only, which was not as fun. The next step is like the actual conference. So you've done all this work to get there. You're going to be at this conference for a few days. This is kind of like up to you how to make the most of it. I focused a lot on advocacy on campus sessions, but this year I think we have a queer and AI track. We have some other cool tracks as well. So definitely check it out beforehand. Think about ways you can make the most of it. Are you going to the career fair? Are you trying to find an internship for this summer or a full-time position? After the conference, it's always great to send out a thank yous with a report. We would have attending members who got funding write up a half-page to one-page report that we could send out to the departments with pictures that they could use. And it was just a great way to maintain those sponsor relationships. And then you can even send last year's report with this year's ask as a way to show them how impactful the conference can be. Also in this stage would probably be reimbursements for those funding sources. And so that's basically it. I think the first year is probably the most difficult because a lot of chapters have not fundraised for the conference. After the first year, you kind of use last year's stuff with minor edits. Starting early is really important, especially for people in like quarter systems or if your quarter or semester starts later. It's a pretty quick turnaround with some of the deadlines we have with our hotels and like registration. Seeing even at the end of like the previous year whether or not a sponsor can like go ahead and commit, and maybe having to do a little work over the summer just to make sure that everything is fully fundraised by the time school starts if you start later. The next part, we're just going to go more in depth into each step of the flowchart. So we'll start with the budget. There was a Notion page that we created that is basically a resource to funding for the annual conference. On that Notion page, there's a lot of links that link out to like example proposals and example budget templates and example write-ups. I really encourage you to actually look at those links and read through that guide. If you pull up the budget template, you can actually play with some of the numbers. You'll edit the yellowish fields. Then you can use this to see, like, if you increase the number of attendees, how much does it look like with cost per participant. So your key components, of course, are how are you getting to the conference. If you're close enough to take a bus or a train, usually it's cheaper. For trains, that really depends on when you book. But this year, Boston is like a Flixbus hub, and those buses are pretty easy. Or if you're driving, there is a shuttle from the airport that goes straight to the Prudential Center, which is where the Boston Sheraton is, and it's $3, so that's great. Conference registration cost, with fees, it's $154 per OSTEM student member. I say OSTEM student member because you have to be a OSTEM account. I mean, you have to have an OSTEM account because we'll ask for your member number, which is within your OSTEM account. Otherwise, I believe it's more. Lodging and miscellaneous expenses. So hotels are $249 a night plus like a 15% tax, and they can accommodate up to 4 people. And then food for travel days or meals not included in the conference. So we cover like Friday lunch, but not dinner, Saturday all meals, and Sunday breakfast. Just let your attendees know that there will be some meals that they are responsible for. The hotel is like kind of attached to a mall, so it's kind of convenient if you're looking to grab Friday dinner, or you can go walk around the area. The next step is the proposal. So the screen grab of the proposal is actually linked on that Notion page with all the resources. As I mentioned earlier, you kind of want to explain what the conference is. Providing a cost breakdown is really important. Let a sponsor know you're asking them to fund like 5% or 10% of the conference. This way they know like you're crowdfunding, and so they might be more inclined to provide you funding. Benefits to the attendees and to the school. Plans for post-conference. This one can just kind of be like, increase sponsorship, host, career development events. The last thing is just a thank you. Thank them for reading the proposal, giving you their time. Even if they don't fund you, maybe they'll know someone who can. It's just important to like maintain a respectful and professional atmosphere. There are upcoming deadlines quickly approaching. September 30th is when the OSTEM travel grant funding closes. Typically, we can provide between $200 and $500 per chapter. So the majority of funding will have to come from other sources. Our deadlines for chapter awards is October 7th at midnight. And we also have like an Advisor of the Year award. Please, nominate your advisor, nominate yourself and your chapter. It's just a great way to like show your campus that you're getting recognized for your work by the larger nonprofit. And then conference registration itself and the hotel block close October 14th. But we will post updates on social media if anything changes.